Good morning. My name is Jack Doggett, and I serve on the worship team and today's worship leader. One of the things I love about this congregation is our can-do attitude. If you've been a member here a long time, you know what that means. If you're relatively new here, just look around at you. It takes a lot of volunteer time and effort to make services and coffee hours and religious education and other events happen. And so I love that about this place. And I want to formally welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. And I want to take a moment to extend a warm welcome to everyone who's visiting us for the first time, either here in the sanctuary or online. And if you are joining us online, please fill out the visitor form in the link in the description, because we'd love to connect with you. To give you some idea of what we're all about, let me tell you about our mission. We say that here we connect bravely, deepen spiritually, embody justice, and always love. What we mean is that this community is inviting you into our shared time together today, but it's also inviting you into a way of life, a way of being in the world that may transform you. We want to grow as individuals and to welcome more people into this community, and we want to help you in your personal dream to make the world and your life better. So there you go, our church in a nutshell. So I have some announcements. One is very important. Pay attention now. Next Sunday, the 10th, is our water service, in-gathering, etc. There's only going to be one service at 11, and it'll be followed by the men's group barbecue out here on the grounds. And so it's different in that one service at 11. Second, after 2 years of coordinating these late services, sometimes known as patchwork services, I'm handing the role off today to one of our newer members, Kate McQuaid, who you'll hear from. Kate comes from a couple of years' experience of doing lay services at her former congregation in St. Louis. And I welcome her and wish you the fun and connections that these services provide. Next, our beloved Will Kropp and Caitlin Moore, who met and married here, and among other contributions are both former presidents of the congregation, are moving to California. And this Sunday and next will be the last times they will be with us for the foreseeable future. And we encourage them, we encourage everyone to share their gratitude and best wishes to them. I believe there's actually a book outside that one can write those kind of wishes in. And then coffee hour, during coffee hour, yes. And finally, for this Labor Day, we're the congregation is a part of a program to bring labor into the pulpit with Together Colorado, a multi-faith, nonpartisan community organization group. Reverend David regularly attends as the Together Colorado along with other faith leaders, including the Boulder Valley Fellowship. So this Sunday, throughout the area, speakers are raising visibility about a campaign to raise the minimum wage here in Boulder County. Perhaps you've read about it. And we're happy to welcome, to give a little announcement, Jade Kelly, who's the president of CWA Local 7799, which is a collaboration of 6 workers' unions in the Denver area. Jade.
Unitarian siblings, sisters and brothers, good to see y'all and your bright and shining faces this morning. My name is Jade Kelly. I am president of CWA Local 7799. As Jack mentioned, we have 6 labor unions. I'll say them all because it is hard to remember them all, and it's always impressive. We've got United Campus Workers Colorado at CU Boulder, CU Denver, CU Anschutz, and down south in CU Colorado Springs. So it's a wall-to-wall union for faculty, staff, graduate, and undergraduate workers. We formed 3 years ago, and since then we've added 5 more labor unions to our local, including Denver Health Workers United and another wall-to-wall union for workers at Denver Health, UC Health Workers United, another wall-to-wall union at every single UC Health site across the states, Denver Public Library Workers United, yet another wall-to-wall union at Denver Public Libraries, Pikes Peak Library Workers United down south for the librarians and all the workers there at Pikes Peak Library in Colorado Springs, and the Defenders Union of Colorado for public defenders all across the state in every single site. So I am honored to be here today. I want to say a special thanks to Reverend Dave. I'm not sure exactly what the formality is around here, but he reached out to me to invite me, and Together Colorado for inviting me to speak for the labor in the pulpit and inviting me into the sacred space. And a big shout out to Jack, Steve, and then of course, my favorite member here, Kate, who is a UCW Colorado CWA 7799 member. And so thank you for your membership dues. I only have 3 to 4 minutes here. I heard that there is someone that will tackle me if I go over, so I want to keep things peaceful, keep things cordial, and recognize that I will also be out in the Earth Room for more polite and / inappropriate conversations if you so choose to. But just wanted to quickly highlight a couple of our campaigns, as well as just talk a little bit about why I'm here and sort of why I think you should be involved in the labor movement, regardless of where you work, regardless of your background, regardless of your generation, regardless if me and you have anything in common. Because it's a word that honestly I was miseducated on, one that I was taught had a completely different meaning, and one word that has a very powerful meaning, and that word is solidarity. I grew up in Arizona, and that word was taught to me as sympathy. I heard it after disasters, I heard it after difficult moments, and I heard it when someone was in trouble and saying, oh, you have my solidarity, and I thought that meant sympathy. No. Sympathy's good. I like sympathy. But solidarity is a lot more powerful. Solidarity means we're in the same situation. Solidarity means I recognize we've got the same plight. Solidarity means we've got the same enemy. And I know that might be something a little controversial sometimes to say in a church, but I read the Bible this morning, James 2:6, one of those. And it was, and now I'm paraphrasing because I don't have my notes in front of me, but is it not the rich who oppress us, who drag us to court? And we've seen that time and time again as workers, that we've seen an unprecedented war on workers, on our worker rights, on our human rights, on our civil rights, regardless of that is on our health care. For me, as a trans woman, recognizing that I am fighting tooth and nail just to get basic health care here in Colorado, despite this being one of the best states, thinking of my union siblings in the South. Regardless if that is a lot of us who have family members who are at will termination. If we wear the wrong color shirt in our workplace, we will be fired and without a reason. Regardless if that is teachers who are threatened with terminations, books that have been banned because they decide to teach liberation instead of oppression, and some of that same propaganda by some of those common enemies. So when I ask for your solidarity, I'm not asking for your sympathy. I'm not asking for your money. I'm not a salesperson up here, I promise you. I'm not preaching any sort of, electoral politics either. What I'm asking you is to help your family members, to help yourselves, to help each other, because we are in the same boat and it's time we start acting like it. I'm supposed to touch my face or say next slide. Next slide, look at that. So if you know anyone that works in any of our labor unions, if you are someone who works in one of our labor unions, you can always talk to Kate or myself. Please tell them to join. It is really important that we build a mass mobilization of workers. It's what we're trying to do here with CWA Local 7799, your favorite union. So if you know someone who works at UC Health, at Denver Health, a cousin, a family member, a friend, if you've got a doctor, maybe get your health care. I'm not saying you just skip the visit, but maybe just ask them, what the working conditions are like and what they think they could do to change it. And help us grow this union, because this is something that'll help you. This is something that'll help your loved ones. This will something that'll help your entire congregation, our entire community, because we've seen the impacts of what happens when we've seen paramedics pushed to the brink, where they have seen in Denver Health, especially at the height of COVID, a 3.5-hour wait time for an ambulance to come to you. We've seen overflowing classrooms just up the hill at CU Boulder where 600 students are packed into a classroom with one teacher getting paid $28,000 a year. And to think that their working conditions aren't your students' learning conditions is absolutely wrong. We're all connected. We have the same plight. We have those same enemies. And I beg you, if you've been moved at all by my words, by the labor movement in general, do not wait. Join us, please. Next slide. One of our other very important campaigns that we have going on right now, as Jack mentioned, is to raise the local minimum wage. This is unfortunately one that we just got handed a bit of a defeat on. We tried to get it raised by 2024, but there are 7 white millionaires on the Boulder City Council, and they decided to punt it to 2025 without any sort of guarantee that it's going to move to anything meaningful. We're trying to move it to $25 an hour, not because we are greedy, I think you know that's not the case, but because we've got staff members at CU Boulder where over 50% of the Boulder food, the campus food pantry are now being, or their users are now staff members, completely dependent for their families. We've seen that minimum wage is not just, a student issue, not that they deserve a fair wage, they absolutely do, but we see that they are mothers, they are single parents, sometimes the primary breadwinners of their family. This is something that affects all of us and everyone in our community. We've seen that raising the local minimum wage lowers evictions, lowers crime, lowers poverty, obviously, increases business. When we hear some of these things that it's going to, destroy the economy, absolutely not true. And we've, been forced to prove it time and time and time again. And we've seen it even when we won our local campaign in Denver, luckily just a year ago, and we can have some concrete data of how it's affecting our community here. Next slide. And then we also have a really important ask for all of you, is that we are walking out for fair pay. And this is always a scary thing as a union to do this because, one, we need a good density of folks. And so we ask every single union member, but also folks in the community like yourselves to come out and join us. We're going to the UMC courtyard at 12:30 p.m. September 14th and hearing from a lot of these voices. Folks that are working 2 or 3 jobs at CU Boulder, barely surviving in our community, often commuting 1 to 2 hours each and every day just to get to work, which that, not to make it into economics, but that's money that gets taken out of our community. That's a hardship on their lives that prevents them from coming to church, that prevents them from organizing in our community from some of the issues that we deeply care about. This is solidarity. I'm not asking you to give me your sympathy. I'm asking you to give me your solidarity. And show up on September 14th, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, tell your enemies. No, not the rich enemies, but the good enemies, the frenemies. Yeah. And join us because this is a really important issue. So I hope you enjoyed my voice. I'll turn it back over to Jack and understand that there's a moment right now here in this country for organized labor. And the reason why I'm speaking to you today is that I have found that the only effective answer for organized greed in this country is organized labor. So thank you, and I appreciate the time.
Let's move into our period of worship now. Our opening words today is from a poem by Danusia Lamaris entitled Small Kindnesses. She says, I've been thinking about the way when you walk down a crowded aisle, people pull in their legs to let you by, or how strangers still say bless you when someone sneezes, a leftover from the bubonic plague days, which meant don't die. And sometimes when you spill lemons from your grocery bag, someone else will help you pick them up. Mostly, we don't want to harm each other. We wanted to be handed our cup of coffee hot, and to say thank you to the person handing it to us, to smile at them and for them to smile back, for the waitress to call us honey when she sets down the bowl of clam chowder, and for the driver in the red pickup truck to let us pass. We have so little of each other now, so far from tribe and fire. Only those brief moments of exchange. What if they are the true dwelling places of the holy, these fleeting temples we make together when we say, "Here, have my seat. Go ahead, you first. I like your hat." Let's rise and follow Sam and Paula and sing our opening hymn, "Gather the Spirit."
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour. Our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in thanks, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion, and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind, seeds for the sowing, light and store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion, and strength. Gather in celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit growing in all, drawn from the moon and fed by the sun. Winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion, and strength. Gather to celebrate once again.
Yeah, it sounds great from up here. Each week we gather and we light our chalice, just as 1,000 other UU congregations do each week around this country. It's a symbol of the Unitarian Universalist past, present, and future. And it's a visible reminder of our interconnection. And I want to invite Kay Doggett this morning to light the chalice.
Good morning, friends. This year has been a big year for Jack and me. For one thing, earlier this year we both turned 75. You know, I know that for some of you, you're thinking, I can't imagine ever being 75. But I suspect some of you are thinking, oh, to be 75 again. Well, also, even a bigger deal is that this very weekend, Jack and I are very profoundly aware of a landmark in our lives. On Labor Day weekend, 50 years ago, we got married. It's mind-boggling to me that we've shared 2/3 of our lives together. And those of you who've lived a long life, I know you know that you're very different now than how you were when you were 25 years old. And certainly, maybe that's by intention, and some just inevitable. If our 50-year marriage were demonstrated in a quilt, hanging quilt of different patterns of fabrics and textures, there would be this one thread that runs through the whole thing, that you can see that would represent our shared experience in UU churches. And that started at the very beginning of our marriage. So in the beginning, church had always been the cornerstone of my life, Protestant mainstream church in West Texas. And Catholicism and church and even Catholic school had been fundamental to Jack's family and his life. But by the time we were 25, we had both started losing the faith and sliding away. But for both of us, we knew that religious community of that sort was really something we longed for. So we were looking for something to engage together on. I did agree to a Catholic wedding just to appease his family. But the one thing I said was that I would not compromise my disbelief in anything that went on in that service. So we finally found a priest, it took a couple of tries, who would perform this minimalistly religious sacrament of the Catholic Church for us. And he required one thing, is that we come up with Bible verses, one from the Old Testament and one from the New Testament, that he'd include in the service. I couldn't think of any one that I could stomach, frankly, so I was like, oh, shoot. But then I remembered I was aware of the Unitarian Church, and I made an appointment to meet with that minister, and he nailed it. He knew. He gave us one from the Song of Solomon's and one from 1 Corinthians. You could probably imagine those. They worked, and we were so impressed that we went back and started attending his church, and the rest is history. Here we are. Making marriage work didn't really come easily to us, and no wonder, because we only knew each other for 6 months when we actually had this wedding on Labor Day weekend. And then I got pregnant less than a year after we married. And then we moved to a foreign country a few weeks before that baby was born. So, well, here we are. Here we are, really delighting in the memories that we've shared. We've been going over those a lot in the last few days, and this whole adulthood that we've shared. And we're really absolutely enamored with the joys and benefits of growing old together. We both recognize the powerfully positive influence that our UU experience has created to help us endure a long marriage. We've shared so many really enriching experiences that have helped us to grow up in sync with each other and traveling along our spiritual path. For one thing, we've built a shared theology, and we've clarified our personal values to each other more articulately. We've reinforced our understanding of who we are, and we've been able to communicate that, and partly by teaching religious education classes together. That's one way that helped us do that. We developed really vital interpersonal skills from things that we've done, like just serving on committees together, doing projects together, attending workshops that ministers and lay people led on everything from leadership and personal growth, and even the Myers-Briggs workshop at our church was, if it hadn't been for that, we probably still wouldn't be married. You can guess. We have proudly witnessed each other grow in confidence and eloquence by watching each other speak our truths before these various congregations. And maybe the most important thing is that along with our daughter, we developed our own family-based values based on UU principles, and those are now still being perpetuated in her home with her husband as they raise our 2 granddaughters. So I'm lighting this challenge in gratitude for the warm welcome that we both received here at this, our 5th congregation, and in celebration of my long enduring, extraordinarily satisfying partnership with this man.
Why don't you stand with me while we say our covenant? Yeah. Why don't we rise and let's say our covenant together? Our covenant is a promise we make to each other about how we'll be together in community. It's simple and it's demanding. So in person and online, we join together as one to speak it aloud. We gather in fellowship to speak truth to each other, to reach out and touch one another, to care with each other, and to speak the truth divine. So be it. Kate.
This meditation on interconnection is from Sylvia Boorstein. If it is comfortable for you, close your eyes. Take a moment to gently stretch your spine and relax your body to help your breath flow more easily in and out of your body. Probably you'll be aware of your diaphragm moving up and down as your chest expands and contracts. Of course, you cannot feel that the exhaling air is rich in carbon dioxide and the inhaling air is rich in oxygen, but you probably know it. You also probably know that the green life in the world, the trees and vines and shrubs and grasses, are breathing in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen back into the environment. The green world and your lungs, as long as they are both viable, are keeping each other alive. Without any volition on your part, your body is part of the world happening, and the world is part of your body continuing. Nothing is separate. Your life is part of all life. Let us be silent for 7 breaths. May it be so.
Our commitment to connect bravely means that we are called to be glad with those who rejoice and to weep with those who mourn. Each week we set aside time in the service to make visible in ritual the joys and sorrows that are now shaping our lives. For those of us meeting in person, I invite you to come forward as you feel moved. Silently take a stone and place it into the earth to symbolize your joys and your cares taking place within the larger whole, mingling with each other and held in the hand of the earth. I want to make one announcement that we were given to celebration of Kate and David Weinstein, who are celebrating their daughter Melanie, just got engaged to her partner Cole. So upcoming joys in their family. So a time for joys and concerns. For the blessings and concerns we each carry, we shall hold this compassionate space with love.
Such a pleasure to meet Kate and get to know her a little bit better in preparing this lay-led service. So there's no minister around, at least not an official UU minister. And we kind of get to do what we want. So today we're going to do a little audience participation and interaction and maybe even a little focus group. Well, so Kate and I have some great stories about belonging to tell you. And more importantly, you're going to have a chance to help and tell some of your stories too. But let's start with kind of a definition. Belonging, to belong. What does that mean? Audience, just shout out a word or a phrase that comes to mind. Connection. Connection.
Meaning caring.
Meaning caring.
Being a part of.
Yes.
Comfort.
Comfort.
Support.
Yeah, solidarity. Support. Compassion. Witnessing. Nice. Okay. Here's another one that I came across in preparation. It's by Peter Block. Some of you may know of his work in organization development and community building. First and foremost, belonging is about being a part of something in relationship with other people, being welcomed into a gathering that values, respects, and cares for us, and where we feel we have something to contribute. It's really nice. Okay, so let's flesh it out one more step. What are some words that indicate the opposite of belonging?
Isolation.
Loneliness. Shunning. Rejection. Alienation, I got that one. Okay. Exclusion, yes. Othering. And sadness. So I see that as kind of two categories of not belonging. One is personal, being lonely, being isolated, unconnected. And another is sort of social, being rejected, being left out, being othered. So first I want to focus on loneliness. And here's my story. When I was 13, I had the first and possibly worst lonely experience in my life. It happened at the Minnesota State Fair, famously the largest state fair in the country. Go ahead and run a slide, Ray. And maybe the largest fair in the world. The Republic of Texas is just wrong about this. In Minnesota, they draw 250,000 people every day for 12 days. There are some of them. And it's 300 acres of amusements and rides and Machinery Hill, where all the tractors are parked, and pre-concerts and exhibits and food vendors, including, next slide, Ray, deep-fried pickles and ice cream. Oh. Look what you started. You know, for our 4-H exhibitors dressing up their llamas, and that woman looks like someone I might have seen back then. All kinds of, as I said, weird food, but free milk. There's a milk booth. Go ahead, Ray. I think that one's next. Next slide. Oh. We got Al Franken first. Al Franken is Heidi and my age, and he grew up about 2 miles in the middle between each of us. One more slide, Ray. Can you read that? A dill pickle lemonade and a bacon-wrapped waffle dog. Okay, one more slide, Ray. There we go. There's the milk stand. The milk stand free milk stand dispenses about 26,000 gallons each year, which they tell us would take a single cow more than 8 years to produce. But I digress. Sad and lonely at the fair. How can that be? How did this happen? Well, I was a member of 4-H at the time, not the animal husbandry or pie baking brand. This was urban Ramsey County 4-H, lots of wood and metalworking projects and home electricals and lamp making and so forth. I did once try my hand at flower arranging, and I got a white ribbon at that county fair, which comes after purple, blue, red, and white, and it means needs improvement. And I also did some demonstration projects, sort of Toastmasters for kids. And I blue ribboned my demonstration on how to do wood finishing, which qualified me to take my demonstration to the state fair, which my mom encouraged me to do and sweetened the deal by saying, I think you're old enough to do the fair all by yourself for 24 hours, because you can sleep over in the 4-H dormitory. So, that first afternoon started a bit rough. My talk was to begin with, aren't these bookends attractive? Which became problematic when, standing there, microphone on, I realized we had forgotten the bookends at home. And I relived that feeling at the first service because I forgot them at home again today. So the die was cast, and you've probably anticipated the rest. That dorm was full of groups of laughing, talking kids. The fairgrounds were packed with families and couples and friends enjoying all that was available, and I apparently was the only person there alone. And other than to order those corn dogs and cheese curds and cotton candy, I didn't talk to a single person for the next 18 hours. That's right. I did feel extremely lonely, and it probably affected me for a long time after that. So, okay, now your turn. We're going to ask you to turn to another person here, 3 if you can't be in a group of 2, and reflect and discuss. Ray. Go. Oh, wait, we should notice that even the what's the name of that character?
Pikachu?
No, the Mario, even the Mario dolls are in community there. I mean, there's a lot of them. And the people flying around in the sky, there's 2 or 3 people in each of those chairs. Next slide, Ray. Oh, that's a 4-H kid in community with her cows. Go ahead, Ray. There's the corn dog. Cheese curds. One more, Ray. All right. So, take a half a minute or so to think and recall an experience of loneliness or isolation or disconnection for you. And then take 30 seconds or so each, minute or so each, to relate that to your partner. And then maybe a few seconds after that to discuss back and forth. Go ahead. Okay, 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Okay, let's come back together, please. I'll tell you what, you're going to get 2 more chances at it, so save the thought. It'll come back. I know it's warm in here, and we are going to run a little bit long. It's just a question of how long, so we'll try to keep this moving as much as we can. So we just did our covenant, and it starts out, we gather in fellowship. We are a social species, like other primates, prairie dogs, ants, and bees. We did not evolve to be loners. I have no idea how rugged individualism came to be the American ideal. I mean, the European settlers, or should we say invaders, they came here on big ships in groups, not individually in kayaks. Yet somehow we've managed to come up with a political and economic philosophy that says greed is good. And a me society is better than a we society. Many indigenous and tribal groups, when they have to mete out capital punishment, it's not to kill the miscreant, it's to banish them. And that was worse than death in that mindset. Ray, let's see Maslow's hierarchy. Oh, first word. Yeah, that's good. So belonging is right there. Belonging and social connection, right there in the middle. And some would say it's even more fundamental than that. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. When Pete Buttigieg was a presidential candidate, he proclaimed a crisis of belonging. And medical science is telling us that that is true in no uncertain terms. About 1 in 5 Americans suffer from chronic loneliness. A 2020 survey revealed that the young adults suffer the most. And since 2020, we must assume that the pandemic has made that worse. Genetic scientist Steve Cole of UCLA Medical School says, loneliness is one of the most toxic environmental risk factors that we're aware of in terms of all-cause mortality. They compare it to its effect on our bodies and our health to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So now let's flip to that other side of what belonging cures or is a treatment for. The feeling of being different, a stranger in your own land, is an underlying cause of a lot of our political divisions and crises. We've learned that feeling excluded is experienced in much the way physical pain is. They both activate the same neural circuits in the brain. Psychologists call it social pain. And people are motivated to alleviate it just as much as they are to slake their thirst or find shelter. All right, let's have another reflection moment. Ray? There we go. Can you recall a time when you felt rejected, left out, or othered, or maybe when you were the cause of those feelings in others? Take a little more time. Finish up question 1 for those of you that want to. We'll take about 2 minutes.
of the things that I appreciate about our community is how hard it is to stop talking to each other. So in the interest of time, there's a question that we're not asking you to take time to discuss, and that is this notion of a place. Have you ever been in a place where you don't feel that you belong? And I belong in a museum. Not because I'm a relic, not yet. No, because museums are familiar to me, as in I am part of the family. I have worked in museums my whole career. In almost any museum, I know what to expect and what is expected of me. I also teach in a museum studies program at CU. There's a short story that I ask my students to read. It's by Leila Abulela, and it's called The Museum. The story's main character is Shadia. She's Sudanese, like the author. Shadia goes to Scotland for graduate school to study mathematics. She has left behind her wealthy family, her fiancé and his red Mercedes, her weekends sitting by the pool at the club and being served lemonade by waiters in white uniforms. At her university in Edinburgh, she meets a Scottish student, a young white man, who wants to befriend her, and he invites her to a museum. He says, it's a museum about Africa. Here's how the author describes Shadia's experience at the museum. The first thing they saw was a photograph of a Scottish man from Victorian times, surrounded by possessions from Africa, overflowing trunks, an ancient map strewn on the floor of the glass cabinet. Shadia reads an exhibition label and looks around some more. During the 18th and 19th centuries, Northeast Scotland contributed skilled and committed individuals to the world. In serving an empire, they gave and received, changed others and were themselves changed, and often returned home with tangible reminders of their experiences. Her eyes skimmed over the disconnected objects out of place and time. Iron and copper, little statues. Nothing was of her. Nothing belonged to her life at home, what she missed. She touched the glass of a cabinet showing papyrus rolls, copper pots. She pressed her forehead and nose against the cool glass. If she could enter the cabinet, she would not make a good exhibit. She wasn't right. She was too modern, too full of mathematics. Abulela wrote about an African woman who did not feel she belonged in an exhibition about Africa. This is what museums have done for a long time. They have represented non-European societies as outdated, quaint, exotic, primitive. They have othered whole continents full of people. Museums have been part of the machinery of colonization and white supremacy. In recent decades, people who work in museums have been trying to do better, to become more humane, more truthful. The process of decolonizing museums takes many forms, from repatriating objects to hiring people who grew up outside of the majority culture. Earlier, I described how when I visit a museum, I know what to expect and what is expected of me. As I was growing up, however, those expectations were shaped by my own Eurocentric culture. As part of doing better, museum staff have been considering belongingness. Do visitors feel they belong? Which visitors? Do we successfully welcome people from different cultural backgrounds? What are we doing to create or undercut their sense of belonging? Visiting museums is something adults do by choice, like going to church. Museums succeed when people want to go to them, like churches. The people who run museums and churches believe our institutions have a great deal to offer, and we want more people to benefit from them. Last year, some museums around the country, including some in our area, began to survey visitors to learn more about their sense of belonging. I'm going to share with you part of the survey. As you listen, see what happens if, in your mind, when you hear the word museum, you replace it with the word church. So these were all statements, and the participants were asked whether they disagree or agree with these statements. When I was at the museum, I felt a part of it. This museum was designed for me. I felt like an outsider at the museum. Museum content reflected my community. I never saw a survey like this when I was church shopping, but these are definitely the questions I was asking and answering about the churches I went to. Now, I've thought some about the barriers to belonging that people might run into in museums. Leila Abulela's story pointed to the monumental barrier of white supremacy. That's something I have to be aware of and ask for help with in my work. I'm involved in creating exhibitions in museums, in collaboration with curators and exhibition designers and museum educators. We make all kinds of decisions that affect whether or not people feel they belong at the museum, including the choice to decenter whiteness or not, as we tell stories about human experience. Other choices that we make involve physical accessibility. If you can't easily move around the gallery or see the displays clearly, you might feel excluded. Or cognitive accessibility. If you don't understand the words we use in explanatory text, you might feel excluded. In my job, I often write the paragraphs that you read on the walls and in cases, and I struggle with pronouns. I don't mean pronouns that indicate gender. I mean pronouns that indicate belonging. We, they. So here's a sentence you might see in an exhibition about Barack Obama. Until 2009, African Americans had never seen themselves fully represented by a US president. So would you have a different understanding about the exhibition if you read this instead? Until 2009, African Americans had never seen ourselves fully represented by a US president. You see how these kinds of choices, small words, might give you the impression that you are the intended audience or not. Belongingness may be essential to the missions of both churches and museums, but their missions differ. I invite you to think about why you are here this morning, what you came to find, and I invite Ray to advance to the next slide. You have reason to believe that you will find here what you came for, that you do belong. So our final question for you to consider and briefly discuss with your neighbor is this. What stands out in your experiences at this church that has given you a sense of belonging and being welcomed? And are you aware of anything that might present an obstacle to fully experiencing that here?
Wrapping this up, just a few weeks ago, I was listening to NPR in the car and came in the middle of the program, and they were talking about third place. Do you know what third place, what that phrase means? It's not coming in third after the first and second place in a race or something. Third places, it was a term coined by a sociologist way back in the late 80s. And he said, you know, the home is kind of our first place, and our workplace is a second place. And then we have third places, places where we go to unwind, to meet friends, to have food and drink, recreation. Think about Cheers, right? Everybody says Norm when Norm comes in. The song says, where they always know, everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. Thank you. Little blank spot there for a moment. So the theory is that we've lost a lot in terms of third places. In the pandemic, we only had 1.5 place because a lot of people were working from home. But what would it be like to have a third place? Originally, that was like a corner cafe or bar or coffee shop. It could be the dog park. That's where I came into the conversation. They were saying, "What's your third place?" Well, I go to the dog park and I see the same people all the time, and we get a lot of business done, and we feel really fulfilled. Maybe even happier than the dogs are. You know, Europe has had this for a long time. The French cafes, German beer gardens, English taverns, and we don't have that. Now, the question is, could the church be a third place? And the answer is it could, but it isn't necessarily, unless this feeling of belonging is its primary feature. Ray, go ahead and run the next slide, please. So we've just redesigned our website. The little pad that was handed out is yours to keep, and it has the website address on there, just in case you've not been there for a while. Ray, go ahead and run these every, there you go, 15 seconds or whatever. It's really fun being part of putting this together, and one of the things that we still haven't finalized, there'll be more pictures, more videos that are going up, but we need a tagline, you know, a slogan. The one that really stood out when I was sort of researching these is the one from the church in Atlanta, and one of our members at the first service had been a member there. And the Atlanta church, UU Church's slogan is, "Love beyond belief." That's really good for a UU church. So, your task as we close here is, if you want to, take another one of those sheets of paper, or take one of the sheets of paper. I didn't really direct you to write anything down yet. We did writing in the other service, so. And come up with some words that you would recommend for a tagline, or a tagline, a phrase, whatever you think. We're going to close out here with a little bit of music. Then there's going to be the offering. So you got a couple of spaces where you can keep thinking and keep writing. We're going to talk about gathering and belonging a lot this year. On November 12th, about 10 weeks from now, we're going to come to a decision about what to do about our facilities. And it all gets rolled into that conversation. Very exciting time, and glad to have you all aboard. Amen. So final instruction, if you did write something down, we would love to see it. You can put your name on it or not, doesn't matter. We'll probably do this again a time or two as we go through the next 2 months. You could put them in the offering basket, or you can put them on the table where you came in and got the pad, which you should keep, but the pencils we need to have back. We borrowed those from Rachel, and her kids need their pencils.
During much of the year, we share our plate with a nonprofit in the Boulder area that are nominated by members, actually. During September, we're sharing our plate with Out Boulder. Without Boulder, not without Boulder, excuse me. Some of you got it, that's great. Since 1994, Out Boulder County has educated, advocated, and provided services, programs, and support to Boulder County's LGBTQ+ and ally communities, and currently connects with around 15,000 people each year. At this time, Out Boulder County is focused on strengthening its established supportive services, including behavioral health, youth, and transgender programs, and leveraging its power to respond to and advocate for the LGBTQ+ community in Boulder County and beyond. And of course, there's lots more information at their website, www.outboulder.org. So we ask you to give generously to this as the ushers pass the basket. And for those online, you can use the QR code or find the link in the video description. And you can here use the QR code if you're a techie giver. Please give as the ushers pass the basket. And may our gifts be used to enact justice, bring peace and love to the Boulder community. We did so well with that opening hymn. Why don't we try one more for our closing hymn? Please rise if you're willing and able, and we'll sing We Laugh, We Cry.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom us to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own, and we believe seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here, make sense of what. Sing it out. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found our joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see even to question truly is an answer.
Our work this morning is at an end, and you've done some work this morning. And our work has just begun. The work of holding one another and this community in love. The work of believing that what connects us is stronger than what separates us. The work of engaging in that which makes us whole. The work of letting go of that which does not serve us. The work of radical inclusion. The work of collective liberation. The work of this beloved community, a beloved community of which we are all a part. A place where we are welcomed, respected, valued, and cherished. A place where we belong. Go in peace.